Thank you, Peter. Thank you, Bob. I think I was just, when you were wrapping up, I was calling down at the spa to see if I get some treatment for my panelists, because we feel like everything has been said, but not by everybody. So just you could revisit the next half an hour Peter's presentation, and you've got everything in there. But on the other hand, I think there's so much more to say about industrial logistics in the US market. And the one comment I would make before we go over to my panelists, I say, I agree with Peter, it's difficult to do suicide from a basement, but I think given everything we heard, we're no longer on the basement when it comes to industrial. Hence the title of our little panel is Where to Go From Here. Because if you're no longer on a basement, we're on a very high note here, the best performing sector we heard. So what does it mean? What are the impacts? And in order to make it a little bit more interesting, and David just kicked it off a little bit, we added in the middle here Sebastian, who's talked a little bit about the data center space, and that one, how is it competing? Could it be considered a niche play within the industrial field? And on top of that, I'm super proud, because think about all the other panels. Finally, we've got a female participant. And if you think about industrial, you think about forklift trucks, lifting heavy, seems very male-dominated. No, it actually is not. So yeah, there's female power on our panel. And on that note, Sara, I think you're first up with your short slide.
Great, thank you. Thanks for having us here. What the slide comes up, I think the graph on the left will be one that you've seen before in Peter's slides as well, and I think we'll see it again in our additional slides. It really tells the story of industrial. Just to frame it a little bit, AEW's experience, we have about 90 billion under management globally. About half of that is in the US, which is where I reside. And within our portfolios, about a third of that 45 billion is in industrial. So it's about 77 million square feet owned, about 190 properties. And really, if you think back, that's grown materially over the past several years. 5 years ago, that was only about 14% of our AUM and closer to 100 properties. So seen significant growth within ownership of the sector, both from acquisition, but also from appreciation. And that's not surprising based on the very strong secular changes that we've seen, the structural change within the sector. And so I'm not going to repeat all of Peter's reasons why we have invested, but they remain the same. E-commerce is really an anchor here, as well as the supply chain resiliency changes that are happening in the sector. The onshoring, so markets like Phoenix is seeing growth as a result of the chip production. Nearshoring, the border towns and cities in Texas are seeing significant growth with the opportunities for additional manufacturing out of the Mexico markets. And then really the diversifying needs of all the ports.